name is Joe Snyder, Dealer Marketing and Training Manager with Freightliner Custom Chassis. And today we wanted to talk to you about how we would do a walk around on a coach to highlight some of the features that add values on the chassis. So you may be asking yourself, what's so important about doing ride and drives? My customers have been online for 2 years trying to figure out exactly what they want. But think about that. They've been online for 2 years and they showed up at your dealership. It must be a pretty special place. Well, we know from the automotive industry that closing ratios increase by 29% just by doing ride and drives. They've saved up their entire lives for this. Let's give them the experience they deserve. There's just a few things that you need to make sure you have ready before you go out on a test drive with your customer. Make sure that the batteries are charged on the coach. Make sure you have plenty of fuel and diesel exhaust fluid. Know your route, have it planned out before you get out there. And last but not least, have the correct tire pressure on the coach. If you really want to set yourself apart and have the best ride and drive, have the best tire pressure, the correct tire pressure when you go out on a ride and drive. One last thing to prep for, and that is make sure you have a spec sheet in hand. You can get a spec sheet for the coach that you're getting ready to sell online at FCCCRV.com or FCCCSalesHQ.com. The spec sheet is going to provide you with all the answers to questions that your customer may have as you're doing a walk around on the coach and chassis. Welcome to your coach. Hey, I wanted to do a quick walk around on the outside of the coach before we get in and do our test drive. You may already have a way that you do walk-arounds that you're used to, and we're just going to add some flavor and color to that today. I like to start behind the door here and come out to the bay doors. We'll open up the luggage doors. If the coach you have has a branded foundation, we want to make sure that we're talking about that and how that gives stability to the overall coach, protecting the slide outs, protecting the tile, Corian countertops. Everything that goes in the coach is protected by that foundation that's married to a chassis. Moving on back, we're going to come over here to the rear suspension. Now this is kind of a special suspension Freightliner came out with. They call it V-Ride. The rear axle holds most of the weight of the coach. It's the biggest, heaviest axle. And if we can control the weight back here, we can control the weight of the coach. You can't even imagine how stable this coach is. You know, I'm sure you're used to pulling out of the driveway today in your Class A and it teeters and teeters and teeters and finally it settles down, you take off. This coach won't do that anymore. Now you gotta make sure that you put these little vignettes of stories of how a coach is gonna react with the old suspension and the new suspension. If you're gonna build value in the coach, you gotta spell it out for them. So another thing that this will do is when you're going from one freeway to another, and say it's a 45-mile-an-hour turn, it's gonna hold the turn, it's not gonna pull to the outside. So the amount of confidence and stability you're gonna have in this coach is gonna be amazing. The way you know you have V-Ride for certain is, if you look down here between the wheel and the coach, you're gonna see a silver medallion on the trailing arm. That's our quick align tool. So here we are at the back of the coach. Let me just open up the back here and talk about a few things maintenance-wise that you're gonna wanna know. There are a few things that you can go over with your customer about service. Every year, they're gonna change their oil filters, fuel filters. Every 2 years, they're gonna change their air cleaner. And every 3 years, they're gonna change their air dryer filter. Now, if you talk to your customer about 1, 2, and 3, you will totally set yourself apart from all the competition out there. How do I know this? Because I talk to your customers at shows all the time. And I can tell you the number 1 and number 2 most neglected maintenance pieces on a coach today are the air cleaner and the air dryer. Now, there's a vacuum indicator right up here, and that vacuum indicator is gonna tell you how dirty that is. That vacuum indicator is for the air cleaner. And a lot of people think that as long as that reads okay, that your air cleaner's okay. But as I stated before, in year number 2, they need to change their air cleaner. Next to the radiator, and that radiator doesn't leave a space really to put a diesel exhaust fluid tank over here, so we actually have a fill that goes all the way over to the other side, so you can fill from either side of the coach for the diesel exhaust fluid. Talk a little bit about the diesel exhaust fluid. Now, some people are confused. Diesel exhaust fluid doesn't actually flow through the engine or anything. It's actually for the emission system. But the main point of it is make sure that it's kept clean. You know, when you go to a fill station, you're gonna notice that the nozzle is underneath the door, again, to keep it clean. And when you go to buy a 2.5 gallon jug of it from a store, you're gonna notice underneath the wrapper the fill neck is actually underneath the wrapper to keep it clean. And it says one-time use on it. So make sure that your customers know, as they open this, make sure everything's cleaned off first, fill it, and then close it right back up and keep it clean. And on back here, you've chosen a luxury coach, very nice choice. And it has an ultra steer tag axle. Tag axle is not a drive axle, so it's just a weight-bearing axle, but this one's kind of special. It turns 12 degrees. So when you're going to make a turn out there and you have 60-degree wheel cut up front, you have 12-degree here in the back, you can make a really sharp turn. As you're making a sharp turn and going at slow speeds, the tag axle will turn, and that means it won't scrub and inhibit the amount you can turn. As a matter of fact, you can turn 8 feet tighter than our competitor's passive steer, and you can turn another 17 feet tighter than a coach that just has a standard tag axle. Up here to the front axle, on your coach, this is an independent front suspension, and one of the ways I kind of cheat to look at some coaches if I'm not quite sure is if I look right up over here, I can see an airbag. So if you look there, you'll see an airbag. So you know it's an independent front suspension. Independent front suspension is going to give you that quality ride. We have 2 A-arms on both sides. As you're going over bumps, protect the coach. You don't even really feel them as you're going down the road. On an I-beam front axle, we want you to have that same feeling. So we built what's called a bell crank. And a bell crank deflects all of the road noise from getting into the steering wheel. If you have an I-beam front axle, you're gonna get up to 55-degree wheel cut. And if you have an independent front suspension like this one, you'll get up to 60-degree wheel cut. And why is that so important to our customers? Because we know 90% of the accidents happen during the 1% of the time our customers are backing up. Take this wheel cut here at 60 degrees, and you get into that situation where you need to make a turn, you're gonna notice the world just kind of goes right by you. And at that moment, you're gonna say, wow, because you're never gonna imagine that you could ever make that turn before. Now, I really like to plant that word wow into my customers. It kind of elevates the experience a little bit, and they're purchasing their dream. So we need to always talk to them like, hey, this is new for us, it's new for them, and we need to honor the fact that they're turning over a large portion of their money to you to actually purchase their dream. So you finished the walk around on the outside of the coach and talked about the chassis a little bit. Make sure that the luggage doors are locked. Make sure it's unplugged and the jacks are up. Now we're ready to go. Welcome. Come on in, we'll get ready for that ride and drive. Hey, by the way, I'm very direct when I do a ride and drive with my customers. I want to make sure that they have the best ride and drive, so I actually seat them in a very specific way so that there's no hitches in anything that we do, and we make sure that we have the best ride and drive possible. It might seem kind of simplistic of me to tell you how to get seated into your driver's cockpit here, but just kind of hang with me. I want to make sure we have a good experience out on the road. Doing ride and drives with customers 10, 20, 30 a day sometimes, you find some of the pinch points. And when you get into a coach and a customer says, oh, I don't like where the pedals are, and they do that 2 or 3 times, you don't want that to happen anymore. So I've developed a system, and it's feet, seat, steering wheel, and mirrors. If you can remember those 4 things, you can set any customer up without having any negative feedback about where anything is located. Push button's a little bit different in a coach like this. So the first time you press the button, you go ahead and press the button there. It's gonna go to what it calls accessory mode, and you'll see some of the peripherals lighting up. The next time you press the button, it's gonna go to an on mode, which for a Class A diesel like this, it's gonna do some system checks. Okay, we're gonna wait. You can kind of hear some clicks going on in the background. You wait for a couple of seconds, you'll hear that buzzer go off, and once it's stopped beeping, you can go ahead and put your foot on the brake, and then press down on that button one more time, and your coach will start up. Freightliner has brought automotive to RV motorhomes, with Mercedes-Benz help, of course. So what I want to share with you is called Drive Tech. And we wanted to help you share this at the dealership level, so we built this point of purchase for you to actually attach to the steering wheels. So if you're looking for in-depth information, it's all right here, or you can go online to FCCCRV.com. But for the purposes of your ride and drive, I want to make sure that you don't miss these kind of features. The shifting pad used to be on the side, is now on the steering column right here. It actually shows up on the screen in front of you. You can see exactly what gear you're in. You don't have to take your hands off the wheel to use the engine brake anymore. Can you believe it? You used to put those buttons all over the place. Not anymore. When you get into a coach that has a Freightliner custom chassis, it's always going to be right here. So, if you pull down once, that is low, second is medium, and then third click is high. If you have a B 6.7 engine, you're only going to have one click, so it's going to say high when it's on. Why don't you hit the home button there on the left-hand side? The home button is going to take you to the home menu. So from that menu, you can see your different trip miles. You can also go down to gauges. You can see fuel economy, cruise control, again, tire pressure monitoring, vehicle configuration, and diagnosis. And to help you on your lots or at the shows, make sure that you use the DriveTech point of purchase that we send out to all dealers. Now, if they flip through this booklet, they're going to see all the features. On the back page here, I want you to know this is how you attach it. We sent Velcro straps so that you can put this right here on your steering wheel. So no matter whether you're out there with the customer or not, they're going to know what DriveTech is all about and what they're looking at here on the dash. Dry turn. Stay on the brake. Stay on the brake. Turn it all the way. Pull a little more. Pull a little more. You got everything out of it. Now we're going to let your foot off the brake. You don't need to put it on the accelerator. And just watch how sharp of a turn you can do in a 45-foot coach. And we are on a pretty small parking lot, and yet you can easily make a U-turn and watch that world go right by you. We need to have a planned route. Your route should have some hills in it. Should have some curves, rough roads. We're going to point out that our steering wheel is not jumping around in our hands when we hit those rough roads. We're going to point out how steady the coach is through the turns. We're going to point out when to turn on the engine brake when they're coming downhill. Those key elements will just be great talking points as you're doing a ride and drive. As you can see, a well-executed ride and drive is the perfect segue to closing the deal. And don't forget Freightliner's uncopyables. We have 450 service locations around the country ready to service your customer. And we have 11 parts distribution centers to get them the part on time. And we have an RV service network called Oasis with RV amenities. It's the only one like it in the industry. We also have factory technicians ready to answer your call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 1-800-FTL-HELP. You can also contact them through our app from the App Store. We at Freightliner hope this video has been helpful to you. And in that effort, we've created a check sheet for you. Download the check sheet and make sure that you have all the correct elements in your next ride and drive with your customer. So good luck and good selling.